3, 2, 1. We are live.
You're now watching two old farts making noises.
Joe, do you want to know why some businesses succeed and some businesses fail? Why some businesses grow and some businesses don't? That's what this show is all about. Business, business, business.
And it's just us, Mo, Larry, and Curly today. So there you go.
Got a trio. Got a trio.
Now, here's what we're going to start off with today. We're supposed to have a guest that's going to come on and talk about Web3. If he makes it, great. If he doesn't, we don't care. However, why this music is so cool today, before we started the show, we were talking about the new president of Argentina.
Oh, yeah.
And this guy is rocking it. So this music is for this guy. This guy has got balls. He's telling the Congress to go screw themselves, the courts to go screw themselves. And it seems, and John's from Argentina, so he'll tell us more, that he is passing laws and actually making things happen to make Argentina better.
Well, let's see. Yeah.
Look at this John smiling. He can go find his Nazi gold.
Yeah. Look, what he's doing is, first he's doing what would be here like an executive order. It's not quite, but it's the same, and it isn't, because I'm not sure how executive orders function here. But so he's using these executive orders to, abolish a whole bunch of laws and regulations that are on the books.
Right. Privatization of several state-owned companies.
So, but just on a technical point here is that if let's just say the Congress doesn't approve of these executive orders,
right,
the two houses of the Congress have to vote to revoke them. So yeah, and so if a new guy comes in, he'd have to do an executive order to reverse the executive order. So so we'll see, but irregardless, I think there were 30 different items in the executive order. So the abolition of the rent laws, the changes in the labor laws, which that is huge, because and the unions are gonna come out, I think, in 2 days and do a some kind of a demonstration with millions of their stooges, right? Because when if you want to fire somebody in Argentina, it's, as an employer, you're screwed, right? You have to pay them a huge amount of money. I think it's is it a month for every week, or I don't know. It's you have to pay them $1 million. I don't know, at this stage, couple of million pesos to
$650 US.
And even if you do it by for a cause, a reasonable cause, or the business is down, doesn't matter. They'll take you to court. It's guaranteed. Employees just take you to court, and the court system never. I mean, I say this with utter confidence: 100%, you always lose. Right, and you always have to, it's sort of like a cost of business. So if you fire somebody or you want to get rid of them or something, you have to prepare, because you're going to pay a bunch of money. If you don't pay them outright, they take you to court, and it takes a while. But so labor laws, the rental thing is big too, because landlords, people that just stop renting because they couldn't increase their rents more than I think it was once a year. And if you're running 150% inflation, it's just as a landlord, by the end of the year, you lost your shirt. So those are pretty big.
I mean, what do you think of the devaluation of the currency? I mean, that was a huge move, but that's going to stave off hyperinflation and some of the other problems economically, you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, the official rate was the official rate was what, 360. The real market was, you know, is about 1,050, right? So they devalued to 850. I mean, it's the only reasonable thing to do. That, you know, the country was paralyzed. I mean, you know, they had to do it. You know, if you want to move things, you know, you have to get to the real value of the currency. And the currency, as he would say, you know, is worth shit. You know, it's not worth anything.
I love this guy.
Yeah.
This guy's the best. We're talking about the Argentinian president for anybody joining late, because, you know, but not like we're live, like only for Kurt. So, but this guy is just kicking ass, and we're loving this guy. So I was telling everybody that I'm reading, anytime there's an article about him, I have to stop and read whatever I'm doing. I have to read it because I just like the cojones on him. Now I'm hoping he really does turn Argentina around. So we'll have to see.
Oh yeah, yeah, that would be great to have another positive economy over there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you know, it's, you know, they're doing all the right things that the other guys haven't done in 20 years.
Cool.
You know, remember that, you know, in the first bunch of executive orders, he reduced the ministries from, I think it was 20 odd to 9, right?
Nice.
Reduce that, you know, get rid of all the state employees that were not really working, right? There were, I think there were like 400,000 people the last time they put out a number that basically were just collecting a paycheck at the end of the month.
Oh, so like our Congress. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, I understand.
Yeah.
So that's nice. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah,
well,
so,
John, you'll keep us abreast of this, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
So
well, let's go to a quick commercial, and then we'll talk about, we have 2 more things to talk about, and hopefully our guests will arrive. Kurt, good to see you today. This is Kurt's last show, everybody. Unless he's going to show up next week. David's not here today. David is sick, but we wanted to start off with the Argentinian president because the Argentinian president rocks, and if he wants to be a guest on our show, John will translate.
We would love to have him.
God help us all.
Yeah, you can do one of those dances.
There you go. We love this guy. All right, hold on, everybody.
Get the freedom and the flexibility of remote work in the lucrative tech industry. Bend your life around the world. Bandicoot is the premier course and community for thriving in a remote tech career. Join the revolution today. Bandicoot.com, official partner of the Lost Dollar Business Club.
There's a beauty.
Right. And it is Kurt's last show on the Lost Dollar Business Club.
And I have something in Lost and Found. I have something in Lost and Found just for you today, Kurt.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Looking forward.
Just like, oh shit.
Do you want to plug your show a little bit, Kurt, and just tell us where you're headed?
Well, let's just say it's a work in progress. It's going to be a bit of a game show with a little bit of humor, a little bit of sarcasm, and a lot of irreverence. So you know, anybody who likes a little irreverent humor, come on down.
There you go. And Kurt's show will be premiering sometime in January, and we will tell everybody here on Lost Dollar the name and what day and time it premieres, so you can all watch it. So we're excited about that. The other thing we were talking about before we came on air, and this is really a quick subject, is that young people are liking Trump more than Biden, which is cool because you really don't want to vote for a dead guy. But then again, it's not so cool because you don't want to vote for a guy who thinks he's an autocrat and a dictator. So
Kamala assured us that he's alive and well. Kamala has assured us that Biden is alive and well.
And he does okay for an 80-year-old. But like Democrats, Republicans, you're all fucking morons. Do you not have anybody in their 40s or 50s or 60s that, I don't know, it appeals? Mr. Biden, love you. You're doing a great job from what I can tell. Trump, we already saw what you did. Not so thrilled. But really, between the two parties, you don't have anybody. I mean, you know, you got to pick somebody.
The main issue is people are not willing to step up to the plate because it's so polarized. That's a big part of it. And they can make more money in business. I mean, isn't that part of?
I'll do the job, but I mean, you know, but they won't like it because we're going to get rid of this pussification of America. I'm not going to care about your feelings, and that's kind of the problem.
Several states have already passed laws against diversity, equity, and inclusion funding.
I know.
So that's
Yeah.
And Colorado said that Trump can't be on the ballot, which actually put his numbers up. So, you know, it's just welcome to America, everybody that's listening outside of America. I'm moving to Argentina.
You do have
The new
many-
president seems to have a clue. So,
It from the outside, it looks scary. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hilarious because technically, you know, you guys are leaders of the free world, right?
no, we're leaders of nothing.
So yeah, so when that goes to shit, we're all in trouble. But you know, when from the outside, it looks a little bit like having LeBron James on your team, right? Trump is sorry, LeBron. He's a little bit of their LeBron for the Republicans,
Right.
and they've depended on him so much to keep everybody polarized on them that when that goes sideways, everybody's gone to sleep behind him, right? In terms of their ability to lead. So who do you pick now?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there are definitely people who still consider themselves patriots and are trying to think what's best for America. But the problem is you just don't see them in the press or in the media, or you just don't see them coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah, but it comes back to that whole LeBron thing, right? Because if you're so focused on one guy leading the team, right, and scoring all the points and doing all this and that, you could be a great player. But if you're on the bench,
no, wait a minute. If we're going to talk, if we're going to compare this to great players, LeBron sucks. We're going to Michael Jordan. I'm sorry. That is the world's greatest basketball player of all time,
without a doubt.
Without a doubt. All right, so let's just let LeBron. You're a great player. Love you, but I got to pull you aside. However, Michael Jordan is the player. So if you're and Michael, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry to LeBron too that we're comparing you to Trump. But to Kurt's analogy, yes, you're literally LeBron. Counting on one guy on the team of 5, if you will, or 10 to carry you for the 10 or 15 years.
But how is the, and you guys, John and Stephen in particular, and Kurt as well, you guys are plugged into the business world. So tell us, what is the business reaction to the prospect of a Biden-Trump duke out for the 2024 election? I mean, what is the business world thinking is going to happen?
Where do you start?
They don't care. They think it's a joke. And globally, they think it's a joke. So when I travel to other countries and we're doing stuff, and you talk to people, they think we're a mess, and they chuckle like it's a mess. It's a joke. The only thing they're worried about is if Russia takes over the Ukraine, because then they go to Poland. Like that's the only thing they're worried about, is because then that's a world war. And they understand that that's where they're worried about who the president is, because they're like, what's going to happen if, or if China decides it wants to take a picnic in Taiwan, what's going to happen if? So Trump's already said he doesn't want to help anybody. So that's their concern, is like, okay, what happens to us then globally as a company? How are we going to make money? They don't care about the people, could care less. Well, they know with at least the Democrats, they're going to, if you will, support that, and they're comfortable. So it's a much different mentality than it was, if you will, back in the day.
Aren't the companies already going into, so Ukraine is already being divided, the economy is already being divided up and considered how post-war it's going to be connected to the global. But
they're not worried about that. There's a difference. No one cares about their economy. Let's like, don't even kid yourself with that. Like, they don't even care about the people. Most people don't know where the Ukraine is. They couldn't find it on a map if their life depended on it. What they're worried about is what happens if we don't fund them, or someone doesn't fund them. Right. And Russia goes through the Ukraine. You know, Putin then wants to go to Poland, right? So now you're going back to the 1930s.
Is that well known that he wants to take Poland?
There's tons of articles. The book that the analyst wrote that outed Trump, I read her, but it's very clear he wants Russia to go back to where it was, like, you know, back in the 1600s type of thing. So it's a very interesting situation, and he realizes if Trump's in, that NATO's screwed, because we won't help them apparently. And China realizes it too. So business leaders that I speak to,
I think it'd be hard to actually not support NATO.
He's already made it clear when he was president the last time.
Real aggression.
I don't think it's going to be hard at all, because he wants to be an autocrat and he wants to be a dictator. And if you're, I help. I'm just a dictator of my little part, and that's it. So I think there's a lot in play, and I think people are they like Trump because he's a celebrity, and they like him because he's brash and he's this and he's that, which is cool. However, if you don't understand what the Constitution says and what democracy says and all the stuff that we're supposed to be, then you can put anybody in there. So you really kind of need someone, if you will, a Trumpish person, but they'll bring the unity back to the parties.
Well,
like, where Reagan and
it's not just in one party; it's across the entire country. Yeah, we need
like
a unity.
Reagan used to have Scotch and cigar night, and so did Clinton with Tip O'Neill. Right? They would get drunk together. They don't do that anymore.
Well, it only changed recently. I mean, it really was only the past 10 or 15 years when the parties created this polarization where the staffers can't even connect with each other at a bar in DC. I mean, that's a crazy division, how bad it's gotten.
So
anyway,
I don't know.
But
wait, we're going to talk about something really cool. Did anybody else have anything on the Trump-Biden thing? Or we're going to go to another commercial, and then we're going to talk about the moon. Dun, dun, dun.
Where it all started.
John, do you have anything you want to add?
Wow.
Okay, we're going to do the moon next.
All right, let's go.
One more commercial, everybody. We're sorry, but we got to pay the bills so Michael can drink out of his fast Lost Dollar Business Club.
Making the right connections is vital to your business and professional success, but reaching out to strangers is awkward and mostly a waste of time and resources. Imagine a world where AI takes the hassle out of networking. Enter Hero, your noise-free professional network powered by AI. What's so cool about Hero? How about getting your own AI networking assistant that's dedicated to solving your challenges by handpicking connections and opportunities that are right for you? But Hero does more than just meaningful matchmaking. We equip you with a customized storefront accessible to anyone on or off the Hero network to help enhance your brand and boost your revenue, making it easy to turn those meaningful connections into valued customers, all within Hero. Hero is networking as it should be, meaningful conversations with well-meaning people without the noise. Join Hero today and harness the power of strategic AI networking.
There you go. I'm actually playing with that site. It's very cool. I'm having a good time with it.
I did sign up to see if I can get beta access. So
you will get beta. I might know the person that's running it. I'll give them a call.
I think you do. Yeah, I want to check it out
for you. All right, Michael. This is a topic Michael wants to talk about because she wants to be an astronaut.
Always wanted to. Always wanted to. The moon. The moon is a good place to be. Let's see. Is there any? Because they've talked about. People have talked about going to the moon because imagine the space observatory you could have with no atmosphere on the moon. What you could see from that spot. So now Kamala Harris spoke at the National Space Council and said that not only are we going to go to the moon within the decade, which is I think that's a bold claim, but within the decade, but we're going to bring an international partner, an international astronaut with us. Now, we're not sure who that could be, but we're thinking, there's rumors around it could be somebody from Japan or Canada, one of the U.S. allies.
Canada pussies. Oh, sorry.
So they're making technology for that moon landing. But yeah, this is under the Artemis program. And the question is it worth going back to the moon? Is it worth going back to the moon if you believe that we went there in the first place?
Well, that's the first thing, right? Do you believe that we went there? Because there's a documentary I watched, and they did the pro and con. Did we go or didn't we go?
Yeah.
And it goes through all this stuff. And the one thing that stuck in my mind out of the whole documentary is, when you ask NASA, do they still have all the technical data and the heat? They go, no, we lost it all. So right away, you're like, maybe we didn't go. So, and now we've got China that sent, and India has sent probes to the moon, and they're driving around. I'm like, can you drive by our
just take a
little
look
space shuttle thing that we left there, the lunar lander crap? Could you drive by that for us? And so far, no one's driven by it. Like, for me, the first thing I would have done is China. As I would have driven by, I go, oh, look, that's really cool. So I think we're 50-50. And then they talk about I know I'm going to say it wrong. The Gamma something belt that's out there that you have to pass through to get out of really us to the moon. And they say there's so much radiation, like you would die. And I'm like, okay. So, and I'm not saying we didn't have the technology, but I'm like, okay, so
how did we get through that?
We did that, but you lost all that. I find it hard to believe that the world at that point in time, that in this humanity, because I don't know what happened in humanity's billions of years before us, but in this humanity, in our lifetime, this is the greatest achievement if you will,
Yes.
in the world, and you lost it. Yeah, that would be like that's like getting married and then losing your wife 5 minutes later. You know what I mean?
That's worse. That's worse than Canada right now, right?
Yeah, that's where we're like. So I have we'll look for the sake of this, let's assume that we've been to the moon.
Well, right. I mean, you could say you could. There's also no limit to government incompetence. So maybe they really did lose it. You know, because it was a program that was funded just during those years until the 70s or early 70s, and then all right, forget about it. Put it on the shelf, and nobody thinks about it ever again. Until
I know where it is. I know where it is. It's in Mar-a-Lago at Trump's bathroom.
There you go. It's in one of his bathrooms. The top secret documents.
Those documents. All right.
It's so secret, but I'll show it to you.
There you go. But to answer your question, should we go back? I think we should, because we have different technology. I think maybe going back, and I know this is like my 6-year-old child self-talking, maybe it brings humanity a little closer together, going, wow, like here we are looking back. Maybe that will help us.
It would be nice to have an outpost on the moon.
Yeah.
For deep space exploration.
Well, according to all the conspiracy guys, we've had a planet there forever. And then if you read, it was Buzz Aldrin who said when they landed, the moon vibrated like a big bell for an hour. So people think the moon is.
Did you say that? Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah, there's a whole thing on it that when they landed on the moon the first time, NASA got a ringing sound, and they said that it rang like a bell for an hour. So there's a hypothesis that the moon is actually hollow, and it is more of a space station than it is, if you will, a satellite
space station or a lizard people space station. Is there?
Same thing. So, well, here let's do it this way. So it depends what you believe. If you believe there's a guy with a beard that created everything, then no, none of this will make sense to you. If you understand that the Catholic Church took out 10 or 12 books from the Bible, that fable, it talks about this type of stuff, then you can have that dialogue. It's very interesting how they say everything came into creation and whatnot, and the technology that these books like the Book of Enoch talks about. And you look at it and you're like, okay, so
let's put a link to the Book of Enoch. That would be
right. That's a fascinating. You read that, you're like, no shit. So, but the whole point on the moon is they said it was a satellite to control, I guess, whatever we're doing. But if it's hollow, and John Lear, the Learjet family guy, has pictures that were not whitewashed by NASA that show structures and towers. Even Buzz Aldrin has said in interviews that there's structures and towers there. Mm-hmm. So I think it whether it was for a civilization millions or billions of years ago, they used it as an outpost and they left it, or it's still there operating. I don't know, but I would like us to go back.
This version of humanity, this iteration of humanity is not the first advanced civilization that's been on the planet Earth. I mean, whoever did all of these amazing megaliths in the past, like on Easter Island, or of course the pyramids being well known, but even these big there are all these religious facilities that are the detail, the fine stonework of the past is not something that could be replicated today. Right. So that obviously indicates that there was advanced technology in the past that we don't know about.
And well, we do, but what's happening is I read this book.
Well, maybe we do. Some of us do know about it. You're right, Steve.
Right. So what happens is archaeologists find stuff and they can't say, oh my God. It's kind of like when the US government in 2019 said in a news conference that nobody cared about, but I happened to be watching CNN one day when they had it. And the guy goes, we have off-world vehicles in our possession. Full stop, telling you they have a UFO, for lack of a better term. Yeah. Okay, nobody cares. So the problem is that, and this is going back 30, 40 years ago, I was doing a thing. I was with a gentleman from an agency that doesn't exist. And we were having this discussion. And he said the primary directive of his agency is to make sure that the truth never gets out. And we've had this discussion on the show. He said, because if the truth gets out, think about what happens. The church goes away, governments go away, and John no longer, if you will, is an Argentinian. Kurt's no longer a Canadian, not that you want to be one. And you're not an American, and I'm not a New Yorker, because a New Yorker is not an American. But anyway, my point is, though, you become an earthling. And when you become an earthling, the governments and religions have no power over you. And when you actually, that's what I mean. People don't read. If they actually read, even the Project Gateway that the CIA did, if you just read that, you'd be like, God is not what we think. Then when you read the 10 or 12 books that the Catholic Church took out of the Bible because it wouldn't fall into their little narrative, it's definitely not what you think. So if you start peeling back the layers, all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's something bigger. And I think that's part of the problem, right? Everybody's only worried about this little infinite amount of time we're here, and they don't realize past this, there's something bigger. And I think that's part of it. So I think the moon was a space station. I think it is hollow. I think we will never know unless we go there. And I'm sure
we have to go. We have to go.
I mean, the four of us would have to, right? We would have to go because
the truth has to come out.
But if I'm an astronaut, you're not going to let me come back and tell anybody any of this, right? No. So the interesting thing about the documentary, I still think we went. Maybe we didn't, but I go with we went. But it was interesting because they showed the press conference after they got out of quarantine and they were talking. And the guy was like, look, they look like they're so distraught. You think if you just came back from the moon, you would be the happiest person in the world. So either they saw something they shouldn't have, or they didn't go. I'll just say they saw something they should have. There's a lot of transmissions that were cut that people have gotten over the years from Freedom of Information that says they are over the hill watching it. Like they're literally telling you there's stuff there. So, you know, it's interesting how this is going to play out. And now we know Elon wants to go to Mars and they want to go do this.
Yeah.
I don't think we're as alone as people think. And I think all this history that goes back to the books that were taken out of the Bible and the history that's on the cave, and they find these other scrolls and they read this, and it talks about flying carpets. And I think those are their spaceships, the flying dragons, because they didn't know what they were 1,000 years ago or 2,000
there's a
years
lot
ago.
of flying. There's a lot of flying objects in ancient art.
Yeah. So that's my point. I think there's things there. I just think we as a society have to open our mind and just can't be the drones that we are. And I think that's the biggest problem.
Yeah. It only stands to reason that we're not alone. I mean, come on. Hey, there's a billion iterations in the universe itself. To think that if of the billions of years that this has all been around and the billions of iterations that this type of life form,
this is the only
similarity is the only one is ludicrous, right? And of course, if you prove it by finding that the moon is not a planet as we've known it, but it's actually a space station, and that means that we're not alone and we are not first, and therefore we don't need the powers that be, like politicians and the things that rule us now. We do. If we were all happy and we weren't all trying to kill each other and just going about our business, we wouldn't need them. They need us by keeping us apart, right? They have to keep us angry. They have to keep us separate, and have to keep some people poor. That's how they keep us. That's how they are able to keep governing us. But then politicians themselves are nothings because they're people governing them, governing every step they make and everything they say.
That would be us.
Yeah,
so there's the Illuminati, the lizard people. That's all us.
We know that.
There's power in knowledge, right? So if you think about the knowledge of things outside of this planet, who wants everybody to know, right? Really, if there's power in it, right? If there's something out there that's bigger and more powerful than what we know, I wouldn't want you to know.
I don't know. I feel like the irony, the great irony, is that if there is some sort of they, like the Illuminati, wouldn't it even be if people were if the mass population were actually woken up to the benefits of to the idea that society is actually one humanity, that people aren't stressed out by economic problems and by these divisions, that everybody would be better off. I mean, don't you, instead of just having one class of people be better off, wouldn't it be better for everybody to be better off? Is that even a possibility?
But then we talked about this. There's no billionaires then. There's no trillionaires, because if everything there'd still be not the way you're thinking, because what happens is, remember, Nick, let's go back to, people can remember Nicholas Tesla, right? Tesla invented free energy. He got the free energy from the Egyptians. And if you know anything about pyramids, they're all over the world. They're just not in Egypt. They are all over the world. and they're all built really the same. They all do. So that's free. Let's assume that was their free energy or their internet of the day.
Yeah.
So when Morgan's like, oh no, we can't do that. We can't make money. The problem is, it goes back to what we spoke about. Greed is good. Gordon Gekko, right? Greed is good. So I may be able to save the planet, but Jesus, that means I won't make $1 billion. People don't think, let's save the planet. That's why when we talk,
really,
it's all bullshit.
that's really the motivation.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. All day long.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you think about it, look at what happens every time we get a really strong middle class. Yeah. People get comfortable. People get happy. Crime starts going down. And then what happens? Right after that, governments start pushing propaganda that, oh, there's a problem. Oh, there's a problem. Next thing, we're all scared. And what are we doing after that? Police.
You reverse the
anger. Yeah. We reverse the trend. And it goes back to this big gulf between the rich and the poor again. And it just cycles. They need that. They need people to be separate in order to exist, to have a real importance. And people don't like to think that they're being used. Every now and again, they start realizing that it's kind of a game and they're being played, and they get really angry. And then, you know, it kind of gets smooth and nice again, and people forget. And then we do it again, and we do it again.
Yeah. And so
we don't learn.
And that's why if we go to the moon the way the VP says we will, with an international space station and some guy from Canada or Japan, useless people, the problem will be is then if they find something, they'll never be able to tell you, because if they do, they'll cut the feed or kill them. The other problem is then people are going to go, do they really go? We have to do that bullshit again. And then they're going to look back and go, there's the little blue marble, the third rock from the sun. And we come in, we make a left at Pluto to get here. But it's the third rock from the sun, and that's it. And you realize how small and meaningless we are. But on this little rock, look at us. But in the grander scheme of things, you're nothing. So if I'm the Catholic Church and a spaceship tomorrow lands in the Vatican Square and talks to the guy with the cute little hat and the funny slippers, that screws up everything. And government, that's the government's biggest fear. Now, whether the government's in negotiations with them or not, I never asked the guy that I dealt with, but he said their primary mission is to make sure that the truth never comes out for a whole bunch of reasons. And religion, politics was one of them, because you can't control the people. And that is the scariest thing of all. That's really what they're trying to hold down. But there's a guy that did an interview, a CIA agent, that said that in 2027, something huge is going to happen, which is going to kind of blow the whole thing off. So we'll see. But with phones now, you can see UFOs.
Why put it off to 2027?
I could be the UFO agenda. I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not constantly, the lizard people, I only see each other every now and then.
I'm just wondering, the universe is enormous.
Right.
Enormous.
Yeah.
Enormous. When you look at the Earth, it's just a speck.
Not even.
If there are other life forms, how come they found us? They found us. We're like, if we're insignificant.
You would think that if there were, if you had a technology where you could actually traverse these ridiculously enormous distances, then maybe it would be easy to send many explorers out and look for this kind of thing. Plus, we've been putting out signals, for long enough. So
yeah, but remember, this has been around for tens of thousands of years. Yeah, if you go back and read any ancient history, they always talk about gods with an S.
Yeah,
and they talk about flying, whatever the flying thing of the day was, carpets, dragons, whatever. So it's been here forever. And if you read like the Book of Enoch and the other books, it's very interesting when they talk about when they were taken physically, they call them angels, into their bubble. And it talks about the bubble the way they best can describe it. And you're just like, well, this is interesting. Now, remember, this is written 5,000, 6,000 years ago. And you're like, okay. And then you have Egyptian, the hieroglyphs with the pictures, and people go, no, that's not. You have the light bulb from Iran or Iraq. So there's technologies out there. And I think the fact that archaeology doesn't want to admit to it, I'm assuming a lot because of the government hides things up. If you talk to people who have seen a real UFO and you ask them off the record, and they tell you the story of what happens after. I'm not talking about Men in Black. I'm talking about government people threatening to like talk or we'll kill you type stuff. That kind of puts it in perspective. Like, we don't want you to know. The best case of a UFO probably ever is Barney and Betty Hill. So if you don't know this, this is in the early 60s. There's a whole book on it. James Earl Jones played it in an ABC movie back in the 70s. But Betty and Barney Hill were an interracial couple. He was a mailman. I think she was a school teacher. They were driving home and they lost 3 hours of time. Okay, well documented. And during this 3 hours, they were abducted, they were examined, this whole thing going on, blah, 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 blah. So everybody thought this was bullshit. So under hypnosis, Betty had said to one of the aliens, "Where do you come from?" And they showed her a star map. So when she was under hypnosis, the guy said, "Can you draw me this star map?" And she draws the star map to where Earth is to the stars. Everybody like, we've never seen anything like it. It's like they have it. 3 or 4 years later, an astronomer is, for the government, is saying, "Oh, I found Zyra Tecula, whatever it's called. And guess what? That is the exact star map to what Betty Hill had drawn." And this is documented. This is not like bullshit. This isn't made up. This is like a full So if you're a school teacher and you knew nothing about astronomy, and the government and nobody else knows about this for 3 or 4 years, but you know about it, say in 1962, and they find it in 1968, there's more out there than they're going to let know. And they think when they started to cover it up is because we just ended World War II. They got very nervous. And, you know, there's a big incident in 1954 where 5 or 6 discs flew around the White House and jet planes would try to find them. And it happened for 7 days straight. There's tons of evidence that people just don't know, gets repressed. There's the incident in 72 or 76 with a JAL airliner where this thing the size of like Montana followed it and circled it and did maneuvers. And when the plane finally landed, they were met, but the government people said, "Can't talk about it." The FAA guys were met with government people, said, "We want, you can't talk about it. Give us your tape." One of the guys actually made a copy of the tape and has showed it to people, like the radar. You can see it, and you're just like, "Holy shit!" So there's there, and I think what's happening now is that we're gonna have to go to the moon to go, "Oh, look, there's alien life," because we fucked you and haven't told you for so long. The other part of it is that with cell phones now, it's hard to hide it. Back in the day, it's like if we didn't have our VCR camera that weighed 27 pounds, go, "Let me get this." Now it's like, "Oh, look, there's a UFO."
Oh, it's all over the place. Yeah.
Right. So I think the government's realizing it. So I think one of the reasons they have to go back is to go look at the discovery we made of this tower that we never saw before. That's because you whited it out with white. I think that's one of the reasons we're going back, in my opinion, is like we have to like make up for the sins of the 60s. We have to go, we just found this. We didn't realize it. Meanwhile, like the Land Rover or whatever, the module thing we landed is probably right next door to one. They're like, "Oh, we didn't see that before. It must have grown." So, I mean, it's one of those type of things is what I'm thinking is why we would go back. And if you do it with an international crew, it's like, look what we discovered as the globe, I think. That would be the way to do it.
There's power in knowledge and there's knowledge in power, right? Yeah. So if you think about let's just say hypothetically tomorrow we discover that there's a way for us to live on the moon or live somewhere else, and it's going to be a utopia. Who's going first? The guys who, push brooms and work in a coal mine, or the guys who have a concentration of wealth and power? Right?
But wait, if you go the moon, you may have money and power, but if you go to the moon, you don't have infrastructure, so you can't control anything. So I get to go to the moon and go, "This is nice." No, so unless you're going to make me a supercar and it can fly above the land, so I can drive my supercar on the moon or Mars or pick your planet. Why am I going? I mean, I would go for like a holiday.
Maybe it's already built though. Maybe it's already built. Right? Well, maybe a lot of this stuff is already in play. Like I say, there's power in knowledge and knowledge and power. If you already know this stuff's there, you already know you're en route, right? I'm going. The people that are going first, the people that can afford to be there, right? They're going to take advantage of this new land in the same way as Europe discovered what we now know as United States and Canada. It wasn't the poor that established it; it was actually the wealthy, right? And so it wouldn't be any different.
or that I
Are we
want to
gonna
go for
live
the
forever
holiday.
now? Are we gonna
No.
find the?
Nah, we haven't got that far.
I don't think the guys who created us. If you read, there's a report. It's on the internet. It's called The Gateway. It was done by a lieutenant colonel or a colonel from the CIA. It's 37 pages long. It is totally fascinating if you read what they wrote.
The hypnosis thing.
Well, no. The Gateway has nothing to do with hypnosis. It has to where they go and they can search and do, the mind people through their minds. But they put them in a special chair. They do all this stuff. But they get to meet people from other dimensions and other places and the whole thing. And they all have this one thing in common called the Gateway. And the Gateway is everything. And it's basically, it's really called the absolute. And when you go, your energy goes back to the absolute. You learn and you go to wherever you're going to go next. So you either come here, you go wherever. And it's fascinating if you read the report and what the people saw and this and that. You're like, really? It's fascinating reading. Whether you believe it or not, doesn't matter. But it is a real paper by a real gentleman from the Army who did it for the CIA. And they kept it quiet for 40 years. And they just released it a few years ago under the Freedom of Information. So it's all over the internet if you want to go find it. But it's fascinating. So like I said, I think our government knows a lot more. And I'm assuming it is not a group. It's not everybody. Like even Barack Obama and Bill Clinton said during their interviews on one of the talk shows, can you tell us about UFOs? And they all chuckle and they go, no, we're not allowed to talk about that. So they don't say, no, they don't exist. And they don't say, yes, they do exist. They just say, we're not allowed to talk about that. So I have a funny feeling your first day as president, they're like, listen, we'll just get this out of the way. UFOs, none of your fucking business. Click. There you go. Next question. Because that's the first thing they all ask, right? Are there UFOs? And I'm assuming the guy that breeds you into becoming president literally sits there and going, listen, been doing this for 100 years. Number 40, whatever you are. Nope. It goes through your little checklist and tells you, and that's it. But, because they're all going to we're going to find out if they're real. No, you're not. You got the Pentagon, the industrial complex, you've got shadow governments, you've got the Illuminati, if you will, you've got the lizard people. I mean, the list goes on. No one's going to let anybody know. It's going to happen by mistake. And then they're going to say, it's like when they used to say it was swamp gas. And meanwhile, the guy's like, I didn't know I could hit swamp gas. I'm hitting it. I have a piece of metal, So I think it's going to be very interesting to see where that goes. I am excited to see what happens in my lifetime with that.
Yes.
And if we can go to the moon, I would go to the moon because I think that would be a blast.
25 years left.
What?
Got 25 years left, maybe.
Dude, I have a deal. I get to live to be a few hundred years old because, the lizard people, Illuminati, we take a special drug. John, I'm already 1 million. So, a couple more million. I'll go.
Nice.
Okay.
So. All right, boys and girls, we're going to do Lost Dollar Business Club. This is Kurt's last one. I got to pull up my Canadian special. So, but Kurt, all kidding aside, it's been a pleasure having you. John has to go find one. It's been a pleasure. We're glad you've joined us. We're looking forward to having you on your new show on the channel and being part of our larger family. So
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Me too. Michael, anything you want to say before we run the thing?
Kurt, it's been great having you. We're looking forward to your new show and very excited to see what comes of it.
Yeah, we're going to have to get you on there as well, Michael. You're going to have to be irreverent, though, for
all right, we'll have to try the irreverence hat. We'll put on the irreverence hat.
That's be hard for me.
Maybe. Yeah.
It'll be hard for me to be irreverent, I think. Yeah, thanks, guys. Here we go.
Welcome to this week's Lost and Found, uncovering dollar winners and losers, where we discuss dollars lost and dollars gained by various companies and projects.
And here we are, boys. Well, Kurt, since you are the Canadian, I'm gonna go with. I have two, but I'm gonna do this one first for you, and then we'll go to Michael, then you, and if John makes it back, cool. And then I have one more after. So there was a thing in the Economist that said, "Are Canadian cities better than American?" The livability index, and to the chagrin of a New Yorker, Vancouver, which I love, by the way, on the most livable city was 97.3. Calgary was 96.8. Toronto was 96.5, followed by Honolulu at 93 and Montreal at 93 as well. The least livable cities were New York at 85.4, Detroit at 86, Houston at 87, and Lexington, Kentucky, why we live there, is 84. And there's a whole other bunch of things that it shows on there. So I wanted to say kudos to the Canadians for actually doing something right, because you got nothing. So,
it's so funny because it's very different from how we feel about our own cities right now. So
I am sure. All right, John. Well, now that you went to the loo, what do you have?
So I was gonna say, Argentina, with Milei and his, I don't know, 50 different rulings, an executive order that has like 50 items in it in total, between the devaluation, I guess the big one is the devaluation from, it's sort of like a 50% devaluation that, Mike was mentioning at the beginning of the show. So, if you have dollars, which a lot of people in Argentina have, physical dollars and dollars abroad, it's a big win.
Cool.
If you have pesos, not so good, because it's devalued even more. So yeah, so it's a big loss there. So.
All right. Well, we're going to keep an eye on Argentina because we love the president. And once again, if you're watching, Mr. President, and I'm sure you're not, but if you are, feel free to come on our show. John will translate. It'll be great, because we'll let you can pass an executive order live on the air. All right, Kurt, let's go to you. Then we'll go to Michael, and then I'll wrap it up with something that will make
He's got one
cry.
more. Yeah.
Go ahead, Kurt. What do you got? Your last lost and found.
This one's let's just go with it. It's light speed commerce. You're probably familiar with it. It's just they have done well. They're expected to do about 64% growth in over the next fiscal year. So they've been trending up for about 6-7 months really strongly. And so if you want to put your money somewhere in tech, it's well worthwhile taking a look at this little Montreal company called Lightspeed. Could be a good place to put some money for the next year or so.
And remember, we're not financial advisors or investors, and talk with your accountants and your legal people and your grandmother and your wife and your sister and your mistress and your sugar baby before you make any investments at all. So there you go. That's our disclaimer. There you go. Don't want to get in trouble. Mr. Michael, what do you have for us?
Deep space cat videos. Deep space cat videos. All right. So NASA is working on this. They're working on broadband in deep space, and we're talking about 19 million miles away. So they sent a probe 19 million miles away, and they wanted to stream at broadband speeds a video. And what they ended up doing was sending a cat video, of course. So it was a momentous occasion marked by a ridiculous video of one of their cats chasing a laser pointer. But it does point out that this is the beginning of a new milestone in deep space communication. So there's a positive end on that.
So the nice thing is how far we've come. We're going to the moon. We're going to meet aliens, and they're going to get cat videos, chasing a laser. We are screwed.
Lots of cat videos.
There's going to be a UFO coming. They're going to be on a field trip, and they're going to just literally take us over. It's going to be like, look at these idiots. We can rule this place without a problem. This is awesome. And this story was a little heartwarming. We always make fun of New Jersey, and we should. But Newark, New Jersey may have found a fix for chronic homelessness. What they are doing was, they're working with the police. And they're converting shipping containers into houses for the homeless. So they won't be homeless. They get some dignity. They have a place to live. I thought that was
That's like the tiny homes movement. That's like the tiny homes movement. Although I think a shipping container is bigger than a tiny home.
Yeah. And it's $200 instead of paying thousands, and they're keeping it nice. There's a beautiful article today in The Economist. I just thought that.
And there's a hell of a lot of shipping containers.
That's true. Where do you think where we're putting all the children that are going to work in China? Come on, we got things to do. Well, Kurt, once again, it has been a pleasure. Thank you for hanging out with us in 2023. We look forward to seeing your new show next year. John, you're back with us next week. Michael's back next week. I'm back next week. David should be back from his being sick. That's what you want to call it. And we will all be back next week, except for Kurt. So everybody, Kurt, happy, healthy. And we'll see you next year on your new show. And everybody, thank you for watching and listening. And we'll see you next Saturday morning at 6 a.m. New York time. Cheers.
Welcome to this week's Lost and Found. Uncover.
Guess we shouldn't do that one, huh? Let's do